Hello, I'm Victor Vogel. For many years, I was an organizational consultant. So I thought I'd talk to you a little bit and introduce my next video while I'm on my walk up here in Michigan. Beautiful day. I spent half my life helping organizations improve their effectiveness. It was during this time, as a consultant, I realized a somewhat obvious concept that leadership and employees either made organizations effective or they made them ineffective. Now, this might seem to be a rather obvious concept, but you'd be surprised how many times I was brought in to help a company improve because of a lack of performance and had to prove to the leadership and the employees that they were the underlying cause. Always remember hearing if it isn't broken, then don't fix it. What I soon to come to understand was leadership and or employees either couldn't or wouldn't take the time to recognize when things were beginning to fall apart. What made this a little difficult is many of these organizations were experiencing growth and could be considered successful, but were on a course destined for disaster. And couldn't see what was broken from what worked. A good example of this problem in recent times is Uber. Uber was considered cutting edge in its business and very popular, and popularity converted to perceived success. Uber's not turned a profit since its inception, and that was 2009. Yet investors were pouring money into the company because of its rapid growth and popularity of the customers that used Uber. The CEO and his team were riding high on their popularity, but all the time, their drivers and employees were distraught over their treatment. Finally, the leadership was surprised with sexual harassment charges. After the board of directors and outside consultants came in and investigated the company, they were bombarded with bad press, and particularly during the Me Too movement. That didn't help. To make a long, ongoing, but short story, the CEO was removed and Uber lost billions of dollars, and while trying to recuperate from an issue that was not initially part of their strategy. Now, this is a good example in today's time that relates well to what I ran into regularly during my consulting years. You would think leadership would learn, but they still are plagued with ineffectiveness even today. Look at our executive branch of our government. So this was the genesis or beginning of my organizational effectiveness model. So let me briefly take you through a review of the model before we take a deep dive into the various components of the model.
All right, let's take just a few moments and walk through what this model looks like. I'll briefly explain each of the component pieces to it. Just before we start our next video, which will be a deep dive into the first segment. When you start a company, if you're just sitting in a room by yourself or sitting in a room with a group of people who want to start the company, probably the very first thing everybody is doing is trying to identify exactly what they want this company to look like and what it's going to be in the future. That's a relatively difficult kind of thing to do, really, when you think about it, because you don't have a lot of the surrounding facts that an existing company has. But when you start this, a lot of times when I'll start an exercise with a group of people who are thinking about this, and I'm working with them up front before the company's initiated, I'll sit down with them and I'll say, look, just kind of envision yourself talking to the Chamber of Commerce, and what you're doing is you're explaining what your success looks like to them 5 years ago from when you started. So, what does it look like? What are you telling them is successful? And what are you telling them about how you got there? So, that kind of helps people begin to start envisioning what they want to do. So, the first part of any program, whether you're a new company and you're starting this for the first time, like I just explained, or you happen to be another company, a lot of other things might be impacting you that are changing external to your company or even internal to your company. And you feel like you need to go back and revisit what you originally were thinking and maybe regenerate that vision or either validate the existing vision. So this process works for either one of those business scenarios. So envisioning is really about insight. It's probably looking into the future and trying to forecast, if you will, what you think you can be. What that normally does is it takes a lot of collaboration with the people who are going to be involved in making your business successful. And that's also including anybody who you have hired or you're thinking about hiring to bring on board. And it's kind of a brainstorming kind of scenario based on all the information you see working out there. For example, what is your niche? Why is your niche there? What's void that you think you're going to be able to provide someone? What problems are you going to solve for people? Whatever that might be, um, you need to create what's called a universally accepted and inspirational vision. And that's really the first part of our model. We spend some time, and we'll go into the time when we go into the deep dive on this. We'll explain how we go about helping organizations or people do this process and some of the tools we've used in that process. And, how we help them come up with a universally accepted, and it needs to be an inspirational vision, something that everybody at the lowest level of the organization is going to lock onto and inspires them to put a lot of energy into achieving that vision. That's why it's a highly collaborative process, and it's very collegial in nature, participative from everyone in the organization. And once you kind of have defined that, you have to kind of step back and create in your mind some reality. Where are you currently? Whether you're fresh and you don't have anything to measure against, or whether you're a 15 or 20-year-old organization and there's been so much going on around you, are you still behaving or operating the way you need to be operating? So you need to ground yourself in reality, and you do that by developing a clear situation statement. And that has to be transparent. In other words, it needs to be intellectually honest. You need to look at everything as it really is and not sugarcoat anything. And this is where companies who have some success going on often falter. They don't take the time to look at things transparently and intellectually honestly, so that they can really get a handle on what the reality is. So when you take that reality and compare it to your universally accepted and inspirational vision statement, you're going to notice some things that you're currently not doing that you need to be doing. And that's really traditionally known in the industry as a strategy, as gap analysis. And that's where you begin your planning process. You start with that gap analysis based on these assessments, and you begin to say, okay, what am I going to be doing? What do I need to be doing to close that gap? And that's really where you start becoming, things start becoming integrated, and you start putting together the functional areas and the roles and responsibilities and resources and all the kinds of things you're going to need to close that gap and achieve that vision that you're looking for. It's a lot of where you design your mission statements and your strategies and your action plans and the processes you're going to use to make all of that happen. So it's kind of really planning and developing the future and putting that all together and operating language, so to speak. And then you have to execute that. So to execute that plan, you have to have an organization that's aligned with it, believes in it, committed to it, and that's why you take some time and look at your culture. And what you need is a functional culture. You need to success, not only operate successfully, but you're going to have to sustain that success over a period of time. So a functional culture is a learning culture, one that it's very collegial, it's very collaborative in nature. It's where everybody is committed to the same goals. There's a lot of honesty, openness, two-way communication. We discuss exactly what a functional culture looks like, and the real powerful tools that we had that allowed us to connect the culture to the employees, to the motivation, to the leadership, and all those tools that help bring the organization together so they could actually go back and implement all those plans that they put together that close the gap and achieve the division. So this is the uh, organizational effectiveness model. It's sequential, starting with the insight, moving to reality and the implementation, and sustaining a functional culture. Then, after a period of time, you're going to want to step back and do this again because things change around you. You can see that. I mean, just in the last 2 years, it's been a tremendous change in the world. So you need to go back and reassess yourself to see if there's any gaps that you're falling behind on, or new things that you need to attach to your vision that would create a gap, and start that process again so that you can sustain your success.
Hi, welcome back. I'm in the studio. As you might guess from this model, everyone in the organization has to contribute to improving the effectiveness of the organization. This high performance culture is critical to implementing what is necessary to achieve the vision. Now you might understand why I started with a video on behavioral association. If you implement high performance culture, then leaders and employees will embrace behavior association, use it to improve performance in real time, each and every day at all levels of the organization. Think of it as ongoing everyday performance review, but unlike those painful performance reviews, these reviews are designed for everyone to input on the process to improve the organization. If employees are doing something wrong, the review is not designed to punish them, but engages them in deciding what to change to get things back on track. We'll be covering each of these phases of the model. During that time, I'll discuss what tools I discovered and used to make the model work. For example, my organizational effectiveness assessment, which I use to develop a high level view of how employees interact with leadership. There are a host of other evaluation tools I use during each of the model's phases. I will leave links to all of these tools in the description. I will discuss the role they played in helping the organization discover the right path to better performance. You don't have to use this model, but you should have a fairly understandable model to use so you don't wander around during your intervention. Please feel free to ask questions in the comments section. Also, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the videos I publish. Thanks for watching this video, and feel free to share it, embed it, or whatever you would like to do to share the information with others. See you in the next video.